Hello everybody, I'm Steven J Humphrey, your local friendly independent parliamentary candidate. You can probably tell by my change of tone that I'm in a reasonably good mood. Not been sleeping very well. But couple of things I want to talk to you in the style of Ron Paul, Dr. Congressman Ron Paul, Congressman for some district in Texas, I think. But anyway, local hero. About consent. I'm in dispute with a company called Wessex Billing Services Limited, and they're claiming a right to charge me £300 for collecting my sewage, and it's the contract manager is called AVI. There's got to be a joke there somewhere. They're taking the piss. Anyway, give you a background on the story. Last August I got this letter out of the blue from Wessex Water saying I owed them 160 quid, and then sent it back saying paid in full, because it's fraud. It's out of the blue comes this bill, and I haven't consented to it. I haven't asked them to take away my sewage. I haven't asked anyone to take away my sewage. And yeah, that was the other thing that got me thinking that it was a scam. Their postcode was BS7, and BS in everyone's understanding means bullshit. So it just gets worse. These corporate slaves think that they're onto a cheap and easy earner, sending out all these notifications and notices and shit like that. And Maggie Thatcher and John Major's government back in '91 changed the rules so that your water and your sewage are two different things. So that you need two different, what they call undertakers, to deal with your water and your sewage. So basically, the Tories divided your water and sewage undertakings into two, and in the hope that they'll double your value. The cost to you, the customers of HM Government PLC, get double the bill. Whereas prior to Maggie's fucking privatisation bloody campaign, at the behest of the Rothschilds, and the evidence is coming out. It's coming out every day. And I'll repeat my advice. If you can afford £40 or £50 a month, get yourself broadband. And then it's £10 a month for the TV, £10 a month for the phone rental, line rental, and then spend the rest on broadband, £20 a month. And as your independent representative in Parliament, I'm going to look at this case and take it as evidence, as an example of the corporate abuse. Because you know, out of the blue you get a bill that 20 years ago didn't exist. That 20 years ago was perfectly capable of being dealt with by the local public authority. They privatised it, remember? Where's Sid? Well, I'll tell you where Sid is. He's talking to the bank manager at the Rothschilds Bank. saying how can we screw the population of Britain for as much money as we possibly can. That's the allegation. That's the abuse of this system. There's this. Now maybe I'm wrong about this Rothschild connection, but I saw a Guardian article about privatising the motorways. God, even your bloody roads are not safe. They want to put a poll tax on every single bloody motorway. And this, I only just discovered it, and it was reported last summer, back in June. And of course June is a hot summer's month, and you're out enjoying the sun, aren't you? So I missed it, didn't see it. But Vince Cable, Treasury spokesman for the Lib Dems, thinks privatising the motorway system, your public highway, that 50 years ago we bankrupted ourselves building, wants to be privatised at the behest of this NM Rothschild, whoever that is. I suspect it's a guy called Nathaniel Rothschild, the latest generation Rothschild banker, who for some reason thinks it's a good idea to privatise your public property. Now the taxman pays and buys an awful lot of stuff. If I remember right, the Thames Barrier in London cost 15 billion back in the 80s. The Channel Tunnel, which is an absolutely brilliant connection between Britain and Europe, cost God knows how much. Now that's an exceptional cost because we've never had a Channel Tunnel before, so it's only reasonable. And the rail providers are supplying transport from you to get to Paris from London via Ashdown in Kent or wherever. You know, so it's only reasonable that if you want to take your car to Paris, you stick it on a train and then pay them £400-500 for the cost of transport. Now that's a reasonable cost. That's an exceptional cost. That's an understandable, reasonable cost. I can understand that cost. The rail companies have to make a profit. They're not a public. Again, they were privatised. British Rail, remember the days of British Rail. We owned British Rail. We built it from scratch. Or you know, the private investors 200 years ago built the railways. And then the British government, during World War II, nationalised it. Because it was a good thing to do in the middle of a war, was to nationalise all the railways. So that you can, if the Germans invaded Scotland, you could get troops from London all the way to Scotland on a train. That made a lot of sense. But then, in the lack of, again, because the war bankrupted us, I keep getting discouraged, I keep getting despondent about this, but don't. Because this case against Wessex Billing Services is giving me a lot of hope and a lot of optimism about how we can change these private corporate slaves of the banking system, right? Because all the evidence seems to point at one single individual or a little cabal, a little council, a little oligarch right at the top of the pyramid of the Illuminati and the global elite. Right? And consent is at the heart of this argument. Do I consent to Wessex Billing Services? I mean, I don't even know if they're a qualified bloody sewage undertaker or not. And I find it interesting that they call them undertakers. It's like, normally associate the word undertakers with looking after your deceased parents. You know, whoever dies goes to an undertaker, and then the undertaker undertakes to dispose of your body in an appropriate, respectful and honourable way. Either you stick him up a chimney or you stick him in the ground, or scatter the ashes and all that kind of stuff. But it just seems that strange that it's an undertaker's. And again, thanks to Maggie Thatcher and her government and the subsequent John Major government. I had a lot of respect for John Major at the time, but not anymore. He's a lackey, he's a slave, he's a lackey, he's a peasant, a villain, as they used to call him in the old days. Bonded to a master. And anyway, I'm going to cut this off and walk around a bit and see you in part 2.